The Dead Sea has always been considered the most saline body of water on Earth. Imagine Lot and his family attempting to escape across the shallow water on the southern end of the Dead Sea. Gases, poison gases, ash from volcanic activity, the ground shaking with an earthquake. In passing across the shallow water, perhaps Lot's life in returning was overcome by the volcanic gases and simply collapsed into the shallow water. In a short period of time, she would become encrusted with salt, and one may very well speak of a pillar of salt.
Behold how this day the hand of the Lord has fallen heavy on the evildoers.
This day will be remembered forever.
The major part of the controversy over the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, as described in chapter 19 of Genesis, really boils down to a single issue. Did it happen? To pursue the answers, we questioned numerous experts.
The Dead Sea Valley is pretty much today like it was thousands of years ago, going way back to prehistoric times. It's an area where we have the smell of gases, we have sulfur, we have tar, bitumen coming up out of the Dead Sea itself. It's an area that one might say is a place waiting for an accident to happen.
The biblical account of Sodom and Gomorrah speaks of the raining fire and brimstone. It speaks of the ground rising as the smoke of a furnace into the air. A typical volcanic eruption would involve the fire of molten rock. It would involve the smoke, the gases, and the ash from the volcanic eruption. Sodom and Gomorrah is a very typical picture of volcanic eruption. Earthquakes, volcanic activity will explain all of the things that we read in the biblical account.
From the account in the Bible, we know that the land went up like the smoke of a furnace, that fire and brimstone rained down, destroying the cities of the plain and all their inhabitants. But many are skeptical. Were these legendary wicked cities destroyed as the Bible says?
Archaeologists have excavated at least 3 out of these 5 sites along the Dead Sea. These sites were abruptly terminated, and there is an ash layer across the surface indicating that they were destroyed by fire. One other thing of interest is that there are 5 wadis along which these sites are built. They drain from the top of the Jordan side into the Dead Sea Valley. And at the 2 northernmost of these wadis, they have found, associated with the sites of Baba Dra and Numeira, a couple of large cemeteries. In these cemeteries, they have found over 50,000 individuals buried, indicating that there was a substantial population in this region at that time.
The ancient city of Baba Dra, which some scholars have associated with biblical Sodom, was of course lived in for a number of centuries prior to its abrupt termination towards the end of the early Bronze Age. These cases in the Jordan Archaeological Museum actually contain artifacts from those earlier centuries of occupation. You can see various storage jars and weapons that were buried with the individuals in the cemetery. I hold in my hand one of the small juglets that came from the earlier part of the occupation at Baba Dra, a small juglet with a flat bottom, very typical of that period.
We can say with certainty that Sodom and Gomorrah not only existed, but were destroyed by devastating means, just as the Scriptures reveal, thus closing this chapter on a most intriguing mystery of the Bible.